I'm Miss Stacy. Welcome to Stacy's Homestead, and today we're going to be canning up some squashed tomatoes with basil. So, yesterday I prepped a bushel and a peck of tomatoes. Took me all day long, and so I was too tired to can that day. And it's recommended that you can squashed or chopped, crushed tomatoes, however you want to call it, hot pack. So we're gonna have to bring these up to temperature because I put them in the fridge overnight while I rested and did chores, really. So I'm gonna use my roaster to just slowly bring them up because I have things to do and stuff, and that way that'll basically take care of itself without me having to worry about it burning on the stove. And then as I can them, I can keep them warm on the temperature dial. Just keep it the same temperature so I don't have to worry about reheating them back up again or doing little batches at a time. So anyways, I have a video on how to prep your tomatoes. I just did it yesterday. I should upload it before I do this one, so check that out if you need to know how to do it. But these are already done and ready to rock and roll, so let's get to it. Alright, so I got my roaster out and plugged in, and so I only have half the tomatoes out right now. I think I might do something else with the other half, so we're just going to start with this bucket. And then we might, I don't know, just depends on how many quarts I get after it's all said and done. So let's start filling up our roaster. I have it at 200 degrees, and that should be good to slowly bring it up to temp. Got my big ladle here. Just put them in. And try not to squish them. You know, just keep them as whole as I can, because I'll squash them later as I put them in the jars here. There's a lot of tomato juice, and that will also evaporate as it heats and stays warm, so that's cool. I mean, I'll have enough juice to can, but it won't be too much because it'll evaporate. So I believe if you have like 12 cups of tomatoes, that would be 6 pints, but I'm doing quarts, so I don't know how much that would be. I really don't know. I get lost. Alright guys, so we'll come back when these are ready to go. Alright guys, so I decided just to fill it up half of this at a time. That way I can get a good even heat. I don't want to make it too dense, you know. One thing I want to say is you want, when you're making squashed tomatoes or crushed tomatoes, I call them squashed tomatoes. But anyways, when you're canning like whole like tomatoes, you don't want to do frozen ones because the texture is just completely different. I tried it with frozen ones, and frozen is easy to peel, but I use those for soups and stuff. But yeah, if you want the right texture and the right consistency and everything, you're gonna have to do it this way. You know, just blanch and peel and do them fresh, okay? Just have to say that. That's the only way to do it. Alright guys, so our tomatoes are ready to start jarring up. I want to squash some of these, so this is where the squashed tomatoes or crushed tomatoes come into play here. So we're gonna squash half of them, squash, and then leave some whole, okay? Because that's what I like, the consistency of that in the jar. Alright, and then we'll start getting the jars ready. So let's pick some basil.
Everybody ready? Your time starts now.
Alright guys, so I got my water heating up to boil. I have 7 quart jars. We're gonna warm up in the canner. And then we're gonna pick some basil here. This is my little basil plant. So it's pretty picked off. Hopefully I'll have enough for canning up here.
I just decided to throw them in thinking that what they would do is disperse the flavor.
I have some outside, but it's in the middle of the night right now. Like 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. This is my daytime right now. And I can't see, so get this basil here. This is my potted basil I have. Alright, I think that might be good enough. Got some down here that needs to be washed. So good.
Nobody said that to eat it, we have to taste it.
The dish that I'm making is fruity turkey ball.
Alright, yeah, I'm going to wash it all up. Wash it all up.
In the oatmeal to give them texture. I can't wait to pick up for your candy robbers.
Try to leave some leaves on for photosynthesis. Alright guys, so we're going to wash this basil up here. And we have some citric acid. Now acid is required in tomato products just to make it more acidy. The pH needs to be up enough for water bathing. So we're going to make sure the pH is good by adding citric acid. Now in the books it's recommended for quarts add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice or half a teaspoon of citric acid or 4 tablespoons of vinegar, okay, 5% vinegar. For pints, add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or a 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid or 2 tablespoons of 5% vinegar. So that's the basic rule there. So I have citric acid and that's what we're going to use. I also have lemon juice, but I don't want that taste. So you can also, to help offset the citric acid, is add a little bit of sugar if you want. So, like equal parts sugar to salt. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt in each quart jar. And so you can also add a teaspoon of sugar. It'll just cancel the acid or the lemon flavor out. Alright, so got our jars warming up here. I'm gonna wash this basil up. Alrighty, got our basil washed up and ready to go. I'm gonna put this pot away and then start putting the acid and salt in our quart jars. Alright, my son's watching The Worst Cooks in America right now. So that's the sound in the background. So, let's put, so my canner holds 7 quarts. My Waterbath canner holds 7 quarts. So, get those. Getting pretty warm here. I have a habit of burning myself, if y'all haven't noticed. These are hot jars. Okay, so we're gonna do quarts, and then my second round of canning I'm gonna do pints, but right now we're gonna do quarts. So we're gonna do a half a teaspoon of citric acid, so in each jar, okay? And this I measure because I don't want too much or too little. And you know what? I think just to do it for the heck of it, we're gonna pH test these tomatoes just to see what the pH is. Because a lot of people don't do this. They believe that the acid is good enough for tomatoes. But I just want to be on the safe side. I have enough issues with things. I don't need any problems health-wise, so I do everything by the book, okay? Except I am a bit of a rebel canner when it comes to recipes and canning things, but when it comes to processing and processing times and like how things are supposed to do, like specific safety measures, I don't skip on those. But I do can things that haven't been tested, you know what I mean? And I reuse lids. That's as far as my rebel goes. Okay. Let's do a teaspoon. Let's see how much salt. It says you can add, it says usually about 2 teaspoons of sugar per quart and 1 teaspoon. Oh, so it says here that you might want to add 2 teaspoons of sugar to offset it. This is the book I'm using is the Amish Canning Cookbook. I like this one. So I use either the Ball Canning for referencing or the Amish Canning Cookbook. I always have to reference no matter how long I've been canning for. It's just like your mind is not accurate. Like look at, I said 1 tablespoon of sugar, it says 2. So it's a 2. I'm not doing it though. I'm saying if you wanted to. So it says crushed tomatoes, hot pack only. Tomato sauce, hot pack only, whole or half tomatoes. You could do cold, raw or cold pack, or hot pack. You could do either one but we are hot packing because it helps boil faster, you know. And plus, here's the thing about not cold packing your tomatoes. I don't really like cold packing tomatoes because here's what happens: the water separates and your tomatoes float. Don't like that. When you cook them, your tomatoes aren't going to float and the water won't separate. So, because the pectins and stuff get neutralized, all that stuff. It's a science, but that's just what happens. So if you want to know how to keep your water from separating, it's because you cold pack most likely. Anyways, hot packing helps keep the color and keep it from floating. Alright, so let's get our salt going. I want to make sure the salt. Yeah, okay, salt is 1 teaspoon. But you know what? I used to just, because I'm doing a video, I'm doing it in the jar, but usually I will just sprinkle salt all over it. But I'm doing a video, so I'll do it by the book here. Okay, 1 teaspoon of salt per jar. And then 2 teaspoons of sugar if you want to use it to offset the acid flavor of lemon or vinegar. Alright. There we go. Got that done. Now we're gonna fill our jars up. Let me get my funnel. Alright, so we're gonna put our tomatoes halfway up in the jar and then add the basil, okay? Try not to spill everywhere. Try not to spill everywhere.
We're going to make chicken cacciatore today. It's chicken with white wine tomato sauce over 3 weeks. We're going to use the legs and the thighs.
Try not to put so much juice in. I got a lot of juice in here. Alright. We're going to do 1-inch headspace. And I don't know where my pokey thing is. We'll just use a chopstick. Oop. chopstick here.
A little splash of wine, and we let it reduce. When I recommend
And then we're gonna add our basil leaf.
what does that mean? Like,
Stick it down on the side so you can see it. Try to make it pretty.
half a can of tomatoes and simmer. Then we're gonna go ahead and add the chicken, and we're gonna put
Do a
a lid
couple.
on it. Let's swing the green
Couple
stuff.
basil leaves in here. I love the taste of basil. All right. Let me bring you in closer so you can see better. There you go. There we go. Alright, there's one. I have so much tomatoes here, goodness.
I'm not sure how it will replicate the process.
I might end up canning the juice separate.
It doesn't cook evenly, and you get burnt on the outside and the bottom in the middle. The sauce is a couple of white wine, thyme, and rosemary, sprinkle it in there, and then reduce. Very simple.
Robert keeps saying, this is simple.
Pretty straightforward, right?
I'm thinking, I'm going to kill you.
Okay, who's ready to taste this? Nice boys.
So these are,
I would love you to make
they call them squash tomatoes because I squash them in here. You squash them. So you can take them with your hand and squash them up.
Taste it, enjoy it. What do you guys think? Yum. Okay, here's your recipe.
You have 60 minutes to break down your chickens and make this recipe. Your time starts.
Time starts now.
You see how they're like squashed up? So squashed tomatoes.
And then I see Lena.
They're not really whole anymore. So when you stir it up, you kind of squash them. They're a mix of whole and squashed, okay? Some are squashed and some are whole.
Sorry. Erica.
Okay.
No idea what she's doing. You know which parts of the chicken that we need?
Is there basil in here?
Breasts. The chicken thighs were like little shreds of meat. This is not thigh. This is, I don't know what any of this is. I'm an operating room nurse, and so once I've had it under my hand, I really felt like I was at the work. And I just went, and before you knew it, the chicken was cut off.
I'm trying to panic if I don't learn how to cook and I can't take my car into a restaurant and I have to go home and have a power wash and save my business.
I am definitely not going to touch this chicken. It was like I'm hovered up over the ceiling, looking down at my dead body, and when I'm not dead, I'm like happy to a chicken. I'm so
So you
disgusted.
squish them
I can't.
in here. Debubble it. So I'm just squashing them real good. The chopstick as I debubble.
I'm a vegetarian because I love animals, so I almost feel like it couldn't be more difficult for me on my first day. I'm in full denial right now, like this is not happening. But I realize if I'm not going to do this right, then what's the point of me being here? That is the moment that I shifted mine and became another person. This is not as hard as I thought. I've rocked it. I have finished chopping up this chicken and I've done it correctly. I'm closing my ears for
I am terrified to make the chicken ketchup because chicken's something that I do screw up on a regular basis. Look at that, brown food. All right, you're not black. I know. Someone who don't care.
They can help you when you are finished on time. Okay, it's time for the tasting. This first
Okay.
tasting is so important. Stefan and I are going to be judging the recruits today on their ability to replicate these dishes.
Alright, let's last jar, and then I'm gonna add sugar to it to offset that citric acid taste.
Kelly, somebody that never butchered a chicken before, you did amazing.
It was hard.
That's right, she did. I love the crust on it. Seasoning's good. Cake is a little undercooked.
Okay.
Well, beautifully seasoned. Good job. Nice. First things first, you need the oil to cook chicken. Look at the color of the chicken. See on this? It's not cooked in the middle. That often, you're deep frying them instead of sauteing.
Okay.
It is my greatest personal passion.
Just about a teaspoon. It says in this 2 teaspoons of sugar. I'm just gonna do 1 teaspoon of sugar.
Try the chicken.
Oh, a heaping teaspoon.
Go to season, right?
Then we'll chopstick that in a bit.
Keep that energy that you have, which is very
Oh, I forgot to do a pH test. Let's do that real fast. And test the pH of the jar. Alright. Sorry guys. Let's I'll stir this sugar in a little bit. Alright, now I got a pH testing strip here because I like to make my own recipes up, and I always want to make sure my pH is right when I do that. So, let's see, it should be the orange color, okay? Look at the pH is,
Everyone in the kitchen had to help me. Everyone.
it's close to between a 5 and a 4. No, actually it's a 4. The pH is a 4. It's darker than a 5. So it's perfect. The pH is already perfect, guys. Didn't need to do the citric acid, but with the tomatoes, I just do it. I just do it. Turn this heat down. I accidentally turned it up. Okay, so let's put the lids on and put this in the canner. The Waterbath. So if I was pressure canning, I probably wouldn't put any acid in, knowing that the acid is pretty good already. Alright, so we're going to wipe the rims with hot water because this isn't greasy, so I'm not using vinegar. Whew, hot water. Ooh, my fingertips are burning. So I have one Tatler lid, and we will put that on the one with the lowest amount of liquid. Probably this one. This one, yeah. Make sure that's super clean. Oh, it sings. The rim sings, meaning squeaks. So that's when you know it's really clean. Alright. Now let's put our lids on. The water is not too hot. It matches the temperature of the jars. I don't want thermal shock here, so make sure the jars and your water is the same temperature when you add that in. Fingertip tight on all of it. Jars in the Waterbath canner tend to, loosen faster, easier, because they vibrate. So make sure they're not too tight, but not too loose.
You are also safe. That leaves paradox and Leva. Please step forward.
Alright, so we're going to put these in the water bath canner. Bring it up to a boil. Alright.
Anna, you are safe.
Make sure the jars aren't too hot.
Jeff. George, you are safe. That means Matt and Eric, bottom two, please step forward. Eric.
Alright. So I'm just going to let these hang out right here while I start bringing it up to a boil, and then I'll lower it.
Matt.
So we're going to get this started here. Once it reaches a rolling boil, then we start our timer, but not until you see it boiling constantly, okay? So for my altitude, it is 45 minutes for quarts and 35 minutes for pints, okay? And then if you live in a higher elevation, you have to add more time on. But look up your altitude and then you guys can figure that out. But I'm 0 to 1,000 feet, so that's what I time for. All right, my water's heating up. Let's go ahead and lower this. Whoosh. Make sure the water is at least an inch over. I actually might need to take some out because it looks like it's a little full. So you can have more than an inch, but not less, okay? I have to take some out because it'll just boil all over the place. A little bit more. There we go. There we go. But you want to make sure you have enough in there for evaporation as well. It's going to evaporate. We'll bring it up to a boil. Make sure it's centered on my stove here. Alright, so it's at a rolling boil and I started my timer for 45 minutes. Alright, so it's been 45 minutes and time to get everything out. Nice and pretty. See, beautiful. So, after the 45-minute mark, you let it sit in the canner to cool down for at least half hour before you take them out. I do, at least. It's still pretty hot. There's Tatler. And the Tatler lid will wrench down real fast. Only the Tatler lid gets turned. There we go. Everything looks beautiful.
I love Leo. You know what's happening here.
Alright guys, so I have the other half in here, and then I have 2 more big giant tubs of tomatoes to process, and so I'll be doing that. I might just do them all this way, I think, but in pints. So alrighty guys, remember pints is 35 minutes, but look up your altitude. But it's for mine. Mine's 0 to 1,000 feet. Alright guys, we'll just talk to you later, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye. All right, now 50 more to go. About.